What's up guys, Andre here, and today I'd like to take a look at some of the features of Laravel Nova. So if you're not familiar with Nova, it's a beautifully designed admin panel for Laravel. It's the latest product in the Laravel ecosystem that Taylor announced about a month ago at Laracon US. I'll link to a video of Taylor launching it below. He gives a great overview of most of its features. So Nova was officially released about a week ago, so let's go ahead and take a look at some of its features ourselves. Now to demo the features of an admin panel, we're going to need an application that already exists and that already has features, models, and relationships. So for that, I'm going to be using my Laravel E-Commerce application, which I have an entire series on if you're interested. So here it is here. And the way I built it out was I initially just built out the core features. The core features were being able to purchase a physical product and have that go through the Stripe. And I didn't really have an admin panel. So whenever I needed to, like say, add a product, I would just go directly into SQL Pro and add it to the database manually. So after about 10 videos, I added Laravel Voyager, which is another admin panel for Laravel. So I've reverted back to the point before I added Voyager, so we can go ahead and give Nova a shot. So I've done some work beforehand because when I reverted back, it went back to a Laravel 5.5 application. So I upgraded to Laravel 5.6 because Nova requires at least 5.6. So I also implemented other features after this point, and I didn't re-implement them here, but I did add the models and the relationships for them. So for example, I didn't add users until later on, but I do have a users table here with some seed data, and the same for orders. So let me just give you a quick demo of the app. As you expect, it's an e-commerce application, and there's products here, and you can also go into the shop page. There's products here, and these are the main models we'll be looking at. So products and categories. And I'll show you the relationships as we go along, but products and categories are a many-to-many relationship. So there's a pivot table involved. And as you expect, you just click on one, you can add it to a cart, you can proceed to checkout. Again, there's no users yet, but I do have a user model because I added that much later on in the series. And then you can fill this out, and this talks to Stripe, and then Stripe accepts the charge. And I sort of use Stripe as a backend admin as well. Like I just saved the data in there. There's also coupons, which you can get a discount on your order on. And yeah, that's the basic application, which we'll be adding Nova to. So let's go ahead and install Nova. So if we go into the docs, so if you scroll down, it says here, after you purchased a license, you can download it from the releases section. And it says to unzip into a Nova directory. So here's the releases section. There's actually a version just released today, which we'll be using. And here's the Nova folder. So when I make this code available, I'm obviously not going to include this Nova folder because it is a paid product. So I'm going to ignore that, but you can have the application code that we'll be writing here. So I'm just going to paste this into the root of our application. And that's the first step. Okay, now it says to add this repositories key into our composer JSON. So let's go ahead and do that. So composer, and let's add that to the bottom here. Let's put it here. Okay. Just indent that. Okay, what's next? Now it says to add Laravel Nova to the require section. So let's grab that. Require, so let's put it right here. Okay, what's next? Okay, now you can composer update. But there's one more thing that I had to do to get it to work. And it sort of mentions it here about the minimum stability and the prefer stable. So I'm just going to paste these 2 lines of code into the composer JSON, and this should get it working. So now I'm going to do a composer update. Yes, and that should install it. So composer update. Okay, that was successful. And there are a few commands that we have to run. So PHP Artisan Nova install. And that just publishes some assets and some other files like a service provider. And then we have to migrate. And Nova is mostly code driven, but I believe it needs one table for actions. So let's go ahead and do that. Migrate. Cool. So now, so it says verify that Nova service provider is in your providers array. So let's go to config app and let's look for Nova service. So there it is. Cool. Okay, I didn't change the user here, so that should be fine. Okay, so now here, this is for authorization and who gets access to Nova. It says that if you're on local, any user in your database can access it. So we are developing locally. So if we did this correctly, we should be able to go to /Nova, and there's the login. I believe I have a user for myself, and we should be able to log in. So let's try that. And there is the backend. Okay, so the first thing I'd like to take a look at is resources. So resources correspond to your models and allow you to perform CRUD actions on your models. So as you can see, there is a default users one here. So if I click on that, here are all the users in my application. So like I said, I have seed data here, so that's why there's data. So let's go ahead and add our own resource, which, like I said earlier, we'll be looking at products. So let me open the site again, Laravel. And as you expect, obviously, products. These products are stored in a products table. So let's go ahead and add a resource for that. So if we go into the docs, here are the basics for defining resources. So we can use this CLI tool, and we can do PHP Artisan Nova resource and give it the model name. So let's go ahead and do that. And in our case, it is product. So let's go ahead, and there is a new folder that's created. So within app, there's a Nova namespace, and there is that product resource we just created. And here is where the product lives, which is correct. And without any other config, that should show up in our admin. I'm gonna rearrange this. Okay, so if I refresh this, there should be products here. So that's pretty straightforward. And I click on products, and by default, it only shows the ID. So to add fields here, let's go back into our code. And there is a fields array right here. As you can see, the ID is right there. So to add more, we can just add some built-in Nova fields here. So the most common being text. So we'll do text, make, and then we give it the database column name. So you can give it sort of this snake case if you want, or you can just give it the database column name. So in our case, let me actually open SQL Pro so we can compare against the database. So my database is Laravel E-Commerce Nova, and products is right here. So as you can see, it's kind of small, but name is one of the columns. So we'll just stick to the database name, and we have to import that. And we just look for the Nova one. Cool. And then that should add it. There you go. There's a name. So to make it sortable, right now you can see there's no arrows here, so you can't sort it. And depending on your app, you want to be able to sort certain fields. So we can just chain on a sortable method. That makes it sortable. Come back here, refresh. Now we can sort it. As you can see, as we sort, we have the URL change, and this can easily be copied and pasted and given to someone else, and then they would be in the same state as your application here, which is really nice. And also, this is built out as an SPA using Vue, which makes it really snappy and a really nice user experience. But you obviously have to be familiar with Vue. It's also built with Tailwind CSS, which if you watch any of my other videos, I really enjoy. So what else? So pagination, I believe the default is 25. If you want to change that, just click on this filter and you can change it here. Searching. So there's two types of search. There's search within the active resource. So we can just search for something here, and it's not showing because we have to define what fields we want to be searchable. So if we go back into our code, so right now it's only searching by ID. So if I just put in a number, then it finds it. But if you want, obviously we want the name to be searchable. So if we just go back here, there is a search array here, and we can give it the database column. And now that should be searchable. Let me just refresh that, sorry. Now it should be searchable by name. And there you go, let's look for something else. TV. There you go, cool. There's also global search, which allows you to search across all your resources. So if I go here and search for TV, then there is the IDs. And again, we have to change that so it shows up the correct column name. So to do that, just go back into our code and just change this title property. So it says, again, the database column. And now the global search should show the name. So TV, and there we go. And if we had more resources, it would search across that as well, but I only have one right now. So, I mean, I have users too, but there's no common search for that. So let me just show you one quick thing about search. If you want like sort of another line underneath to serve as a subtitle, we can actually do that. So back into our code, let's just add a subtitle field, which I'm just going to paste in here. And the details field is in the database, and that's what I'm defining as the subtitle. So it just has information about the product. So now if I search, say appliance, did I not save? I did not save. Try it again. So TV, there you go. There are the details as a second line. Cool. Okay, let's keep adding some fields in here. Let's go back into our code, and I'm gonna add more here. So another field I have, let me show you, is slug, details, price. So let's add a few of these. Let me just paste in the slug. Sorry, let me remove the rules for now. I'm gonna get to that in a second. So slug and details are just the same as name. They're just text fields. Make sure I put a comma here. See how that looks. Okay, cool. So if you go into here, you can see all the types of fields. So here. So next one I want to take a look at is currency. So let's go ahead and do this. So go back to my code. Currency. What is the field name in my database? It is price. So we stick with price. Actually, let me lowercase this. Again, you can use uppercase or lowercase, but I'll stick with the database name. And we want this to be sortable. Okay, let me save that, and let's see if price shows. I have to import that. as you can see, there's the error there. And since it's a SPA, there's no full page error. It just comes back as Ajax, which doesn't crash your app, which is really nice. So let's import this, save that, refresh this. Okay, so there is price, but it's in cents. So we want that to be dollars. So how do we do that? So we can actually do something like this and give it a price, sort of. A computed property. And in here, we can do whatever we want. In our case, we want to divide by 100. So let's go ahead and go back into our code. Let me just comment this out. And I'm going to paste in the same thing, but with a computed property. And in our case, we just want to divide by 100. Sorry, this is from my finished project already. We'll get to those in a sec. Back here. And that works, but I don't think we can sort with computed properties. So, like if I do sortable here, it still won't work. Or will it? No, it doesn't, see? And we definitely want to sort by price. That seems to be a common thing that we'd want to do for our products table. Sorry, let me just get rid of this search here. So is there another way we can sort of make this sortable and have this computed property? So if we go into customization here, we can use this resolve using function, which sort of functions as a computed property. So let's see if we can make use of that. I'm just going to paste some code in here, and we'll comment this out again. And we'll use that new resolve using function. So I'm back to using text because it doesn't seem to work with currency. And we're using the price here. And we're passing in a closure. And I am adding the $sign and dividing by 100. And I'm making it sortable. So let's see if this works. And it does. And sorting works, so that's great. We sorted that out. Okay, let's continue. There's something I want to do with price in a second, but I want to show you something else which will lead into that. So let's look at another field here. So another field is description, but generally speaking, the description is longer form text, and we don't want that to display on the index page. So let's go ahead and add a new field here there's a text area, which is longer form text. I'm going to do text area make description. And I'm not sure sorry, I forgot a comma, but I think Nova is smart enough to not add text areas to the index. Let's see. Text area not found. Let me import that. Save that. Yes, so it is smart enough. So let me show you what I mean. If I go into, so there's other views here. There is the view page and there's an edit page. So the text area should show in there. And it does right here, description. And same for edit. So I hope you understand what I'm trying to get at here. There are some fields that you don't want to show on the index, but you do want to show on these other two fields, or just one of them if you want. But Laravel Nova is smart enough to hide this on the index by default. So if you want to be explicit about it, you can call hide from index here. And that's not going to change anything, but it's more explicit. Okay, let's take a look. That should be the same. But the thing I want to show you with price is, so this is fine. That's showing the correct one in the view page. But if you want to edit it, you can edit it from here. This is showing as dollars. And if we submit this, then the database data is going to be screwed up because it's not in the correct format of sense. So let me see what happens here. Update product. There you go. I see an error here. So when we're editing, we still have to change it back to sense. So how do we do that? So to do that, we can make another field here that only shows on the details page. So let's go ahead and let's put it right after price actually. Right here. So we'll do number make price. So now there's two prices, but this one is only going to show on forms. So only on forms. And that should override, sorry, I always forget the comma. Okay, I have to import that. I always forget to import as well. So now it's in sense here. Actually, there's two now. We don't want this one to show. So for this first price, we can specify that only on index. So we can do somewhere here. Only on index. And now there should only be one here. And now we can update the price accordingly. So if I change this to 981.08, that should work. Cool. So I still haven't figured out a way, like I'd like to be able to enter this in dollars. So I didn't look into it too much, but it'd be nice if there was a way such that I could update this using dollars instead of cents. Okay, now let's take a look at validation. So for example, I think details is required. Let me just cut this out. If we try to update it, and side note, these two buttons are a small detail, but it's really nice. So what update product does is it updates it and then it goes to the view page. But sometimes you want to stay on this page, so that's what this button is for. Nice, really small detail there. So let me try to update this. Okay, so I guess details can be empty. Okay, slug for sure can't be empty. So there you go. So again, because it's a SPA, the backend error comes in as Ajax, which is nice. But if we wanted nicer error messages, we can definitely make use of some front-end validation here. So let me put that back. And let's go back into our code. And to add validation, all we have to do is add a new method here, rules, and we can just use the Laravel validation rules in here. So I'm not going to go too into details. I'm just going to make them required. And we can do the same for these ones. What else? And here. So we can just paste that in. And that should now have validation. So now if I try to remove this, there you go. Slug field is required. Cool. Okay, now let's take a look at panels. So panels just separate the fields here. For example, there can be too many in one and it can look a bit cramped. So let me show you how to add panels. Back into our code. So after this description, let's make a new panel here. Let's call it visibility. And let's call a method visibility fields. And let's not forget our comma. And I'm just going to paste some code in to save time. But all this is doing is it's adding more fields for this specific panel. So I'm adding two new fields, featured and quantity, which are right here. So featured is a Boolean and quantity is a number. Let me import Boolean. Okay, see if that works. So that should just provide some separation here. I have a syntax error, new panel, comma. Again, I'm always forgetting the commas. Panel, have to import. Okay, see, now you see two panels here. Cool. So if you're curious as to what the feature does, it just, I think on the main page, these products are featured. So just a random featured product is shown here. And then on the shop page, before you select a category, then these ones are featured products. So we can toggle that on and off now since we have this. So if you edit it, so let's go ahead and take a look at the dashboard. Sorry, not dashboard, products. So you can see it here too. It's red or green. So appliance 5 should be here somewhere. Appliance 5. It's not here. There it is right there. But if I take that off, just uncheck that, update. Now it's not featured, and now that should be gone. Awesome. So another thing that I didn't really have much time to look at, and we probably won't be looking at here, but I'll mention it, is the images. So in my series, I eventually added images using Voyager because it has a media manager and allows you to upload files. So there's no media manager in Nova yet, but there is an upload field. So if you go into field types, or there's an image field at least, or there's file and there's images. Maybe we'll take a look at that in future videos, but right now the implementation is pretty basic. It's just taking the slug of the image and it just looks for a file with that name. So for example, there should be a file named TV-4. I think it's JPEG. So yeah, maybe we'll take a look at images in the future. And I think I just forgot to show, yeah, well, this is pretty intuitive, but obviously you can now add products here. So featured, yes, and let's give it 10. We can create it. And now it's added. But like I said, this will show up here, but there'll be no image for it. So it should be somewhere here. And there it is there. Okay, now let's take a look at filters. So filters allow you to filter your resources here. So it will show up in this icon here. So for example, if I wanted to just show the featured products, so sort of a way of doing that is you can just sort and then just look at it. That would be okay. But a better way would be to use filters. So let's go ahead and go into the docs and let's look for filters here. So here, defining filters. So we can do this. PHP Artisan Nova filter. And I'm going to make one called featured product. Actually, let's name it product featured, just so we can like sort of namespace all our sort of product filters. So product featured, and that is going to create a file in here, product featured, and we can specify the query here and the options here. So let's go back into our code. And so we want a query where all we're doing is filtering featured based on the value. So it's just a Boolean value, so we can specify the two types here. So this will be what displays in our admin panel, and this is the actual value in the database. We can put 0 or 1, but we can also put true or false. And the next one is not featured. And this one's false. And to register filters, we can just go into our resource and do this. So let's go into product here and filters right here. Just going to do new filters. I think I named it product featured. And let me import that. Cool. And if we did that right, then just click on this. It should show up here. Let me just hard refresh. There it is. And if we do featured, it will only show our featured products, and we can do not featured, and it will show the rest. So if you want to know how many there are, just click on this and you'll see how many there are. 13, and not featured 72. Cool. Okay, let's quickly do one more filter. And what I want to do is sort of have a low stock and a in stock indicator. So if it's less than sort of a threshold, let's say 5, then I want that to be considered low stock. So how would we go about doing that? Let's make another filter here. Let's call it product quantity or product in stock or something like that. We'll just name it this. And back to our code, let's go to product quantity. And in our other filter, we just did an equals comparison here, but now we want an inequality. So how are we going to do that? Let's specify the values first here. So like I said, I want low stock, and that's going to be a certain number. So like less than a certain number. So let's just hard code that in for now. And then I want another one for in stock, and that's going to be sort of like 1 plus that number. So it looks like we need a variable to hold the threshold. So let's go ahead and make one up here. Let's put it as an instance variable. So protected threshold equals, say, 5. And now we can just use that variable instead. So this threshold, and I can use this and add 1 to it. And in here, now we can just do a conditional. So if the value, which is either going to be, in our case, 5 or 6, so if that is equal to the threshold, so this threshold, then we want our query to be, let me just put this in here, query where quantity is less than or equal to the value. And then now we can have an else clause that just does the opposite of that. And should be greater than or equal to, and that should do it. You can also use a ternary if you like, but I'm okay with this syntax here. And yeah, let's see if this works. Oh, I have to register it. So back here, product quantity. So new filters, product quantity, import that. Okay, let's see if that works. Let me just hard refresh this. Let me just go back here. Hard refresh. So there it is. So in low stock should be, this should result in nothing because, yeah, but in stock should do that. So let's change a few of them. Let's change this one to less than 5, say 4. And then let's change another one, say 3. Okay, so let's try this again. Low stock, there you go, and in stock. Awesome. You can also combine the filters. So say, for example, we wanted featured products that are in stock, then this would reflect that, and featured products that are low stock. Cool. Okay, now let's take a look at relationships. So let me just clear this filter here. So just click on that empty slot there. And as I said before, products and categories have a many-to-many relationship. So if you look at our model here, there is a belongs to many here. If you look at category, there's a belongs to many there. So we also have a pivot table. So it should be called category product. And there it is. So what we want to have happen is as we take a look at one of the products, we want to see what category they belong to as well. So down here, we'd like to see the relationship that this shares with the category. So how do we do that? So first of all, we have to specify the resource for the category. So let's do that first. So let's do resource category. Okay, and that should add it here. Okay, categories. And let's just add a name field here. So category here. And let's just add a text. So let's do text make, and let's import that. Nova, and sorry, this should be name. And see if that shows that. Cool. So how do we add this relationship? So right here, like I said, we want this to show the categories that this product belongs to. So if you go into the docs and look for relationships right here, just look for, it supports all the relationships in Laravel. And in our case, it's a belongs to many. So all we have to do is add this to our fields array and specify the relationship. So this goes in here. So in our product, right here at the end of our fields or wherever you want to show up. So I want to show up after the panel. So belongs to many, and in our case, it's categories. And let's import that. Okay, save that. Back here, hard refresh. And there it is right there. So appliance 9 belongs to, obviously, appliances. And if you wanted to add another category to this product, we just do attach category. We'll choose one. And right now it's displaying just the IDs because we have to specify a name in the category. So let's just give it a name here. Let's go back here, refresh. There you go. You get the name showing up, and let's give it a laptop category, attach. And now you can see appliance 9 is an appliance and a laptop. So if you go into here, go to laptops, should be at the end, and there it is. And obviously it's an appliance as well, right there. Cool. Okay, so I've gone ahead and added orders as a resource because orders are an important part of our application. And there are two types of relationships that are related to orders. So there's a relationship between orders and products, and that is also a many-to-many relationship. So here I am in my orders index. If I click on one of them, hopefully this one has products, and it does. So you'll see that this order has a total, again, these values are just fake. They don't add up, but they would in the real application. So this order has 5 products associated with it. And this right here is not working, at least for me at the moment. And it seems like other people are having this issue. So this is the pivot table. So the pivot table has one extra field on it, which stores the quantity of that product. So an order product, there's a quantity item, and this will just show how many products for this item were ordered for this particular order. And the other relationship is between orders and users. So a user has many orders. So in this case, we want to be able to drill down into one user and see their particular orders. So hopefully this user has orders, and they do. So this particular user has 3 orders, and here are their IDs and all their information. And you can drill down into that specific order and then see the products. So yeah, the relationships are really nice to work with and pretty simple to use. Okay, now let's take a look at metrics. So let's go into the docs and let's go into metrics. Where's metrics? Right here, so defining metrics. So with any admin panel, you definitely want metrics or stats onto what's going on in your application. So metrics allows you to do that easily. So let's go ahead and take this example here for new users. And let's go ahead and go to the CLI, let's type that in. And that will make a new file called new users in metrics. And here we want to count a particular table here. In our case, it's a user. Let's import that. And this would be the normal user. And you're not limited to just counting. There are a whole bunch of different operations for stats. Average, sum, max, min. So whatever you need for your stats, there is a method for it. And the ranges here, whatever ranges you want, we can add. I want to see the current daily users. So like number of users that registered today. So we can add a new one here for 1 and just say 1 day. And then we can register the metric. So you can add metrics to either the resource page. So whatever resource is related to your metric, you can put it like up here, or you can put it on your dashboard. So when you first log in, you see that certain metric. So for example, if I wanted to add it to the users, we can just add it to this cards function. And let's just copy this and go to our user resource right here. And let's just paste that in. And let's import that. Oh, we don't have to import it because it's namespaced. Okay. And then that should show it if I refresh. Users per day not found. It's called new users. So there it is. And you can change the range, and you can see the new users for this date range. If you want to add it to the dashboard page, you can go into your Nova service provider and add it there. So I'm going to copy this. You can put it on both too if you like. So we'll just leave this here. We'll go into Nova service provider. We'll go into cards here. And this help one is the default sort of view for the dashboard. So that cards is this stuff here. We can remove that if we like and just add that. Now we need to import it. Cool. And now that metric should show up here. Cool. And if you want to change the width, you can. So I think there are a few sizes. The default is 1/3. You can do, yeah, just call a method on it and give it the width. So we just do this. And then width, let's give it a half. And that should be half the screen, and it is. Cool. Okay, let's make another one. What other information would be important to us? I would say probably the new orders. So you want to see how many orders there are for the current day. So it's pretty much the same as new users. So let's go ahead and do this. New orders. And just import order. Let's import that. App order. Let's add 1 day here. And 1 day. And let's go into our service provider. And let's do new orders. And that's a good width. And that should work. New orders. Okay. And there's our new orders for the day. And we can change the range. And that updates accordingly. Cool. So one more. Similar to new orders, we want the revenue for the day. So let's make a new one. Let's call it revenue. And let's go into that. Revenue. And instead of counting, we are going to sum the order. So let's import that. And we want to specify the column we want to sum. And in our case, it's billing total. And again, we want 1 day here. Hopefully in the future this is default, because 1 day seems to be a metric people would want to see. And let's put it on the main screen again. Nova Service Provider. Revenue. 1/3. Import that. Save. And let's see if that shows up. Cool. So that's correct, but this is in cents. And I can't figure out a way to change that to dollars, at least for now. If you go into the docs, you can manually build results here if you use this syntax, but you lose that sort of date range. So yeah, maybe I'm just missing something, I don't know, but it seems like other people are having the same issue, and there are some issues raised on the GitHub repo. Okay, let's take a look at one more metric, and those ones were just value metrics, but there's also trend metrics. And this just displays values over time using a line chart. So let's go ahead and do the same thing for users per day, or you can do the same for revenue per day, but we'll stick to this example here. And let's just do that. And then we just want to do this in users per day. So it should be in users per day. Do that, import this. And then we can keep the ranges. And then we just have to save that. Add another one here. Users per day. Import, save, back here. So now we have a nice line chart, and if you hover over it, you can see the value for that particular day. So these ones in particular are probably a good idea to make it larger, especially if the date range is larger here. So there you go. There's also partition metrics, which is a pie chart, but we won't take a look at that here. Okay, so the last thing I want to take a look at is tools. So what if you needed some additional functionality that is not provided by Nova? So Nova allows you to build custom tools, so you can register it in the sidebar or in the resource, and you can do whatever you want using Vue and Tailwind and your own backend. So let's go ahead and make a tool. It's not going to do anything, but I'll just show you how to add something in the sidebar and how you can make use of that. So let's use this function here. this command. And let's go into here. I'm going to clear this. And let's name it, I'm going to name it my username. And then I'm going to name it some tool. And let's say yes to this because we need to install everything for it to work correctly. Okay, so that's done. If we look in our editor here, there is a whole new folder specific to that tool alone. So it's outside of this. It's in Nova components and whatever you named it. So as you can see, it has its own package JSON, its own composer JSON, its own dependencies. So it sort of lives on its own and it makes it easy to distribute as a package. So if you go into our admin, go to here and refresh. Sorry, I think we have to register it first. Yeah, you have to register it here. So right in Nova Service Provider again, there's a tools function and we can register it in there. So Nova Service Provider, tools, just register it inside the array here. And in our case, it's called some tool. And I'm going to import that. Okay. And now in our admin, and there it is right there. So if you click on it, this is the default that you get. And again, if you look in there, it has its own set of files which you can do whatever you need to with. So for example, if we go into resources, JS, components, tool.view, this is where this is defined. So back to here, some tool changed. And we have to npm, we have to compile it. So let's go into Nova components, some tool, and then we can do npm run watch. Okay, so now that should have compiled and this should change here. So there you go. So it has its own view components. It's using Tailwind, so you can do whatever you want here. You can even communicate with the backend, and it also has its own set of routes which you can make use of. So let's go ahead and make something very simple where we just grab some data from the backend using axios. So right here it says we're in a black hole. Let's just put a variable in here. Let's just call it from server. And let's make a data property here. And let's return from server is hello from server. Obviously that's not from the server, but we'll replace that with an axios call in a second. Okay. So let's make this empty. And let's change this to a created hook. And let's call axios from within here. So axios is already available to us. Actually, let me just stub this out for a sec. And if you look in here, there are routes. And here is one stubbed out, and it's just a /endpoint. And you can do whatever you want in here. So I'm just gonna return hello from server. And let's try to get this data in from our front end tool here. So what is the endpoint? So if you go into here, and if you do PHP artisan route list, and if we grep some tool or just tool, you'll see the route here. So the endpoint is Nova vendor, the name of your tool, and the name of your route. Let's go ahead and grab that. So that is the endpoint. And then over here, we can just assign our variable to response.data. And now if we did that correctly, this should grab the data from the backend and show it in here. So we're in a black hole, hello from server with exclamation points. So let's see if that works. There we go. Just grabbing this information from our backend endpoint. So I hope that demonstrates that you can do whatever you want in this tool. So you're not limited to the sidebar. Some tools make sense if they are in a resource. So let's go ahead and take a look at how we can do that. So resource tools is what that's called. And we're going to use the example here because it actually makes sense for our application. So here's what we're trying to build for this tool. So we have orders, and our orders communicate with Stripe. So in here, it'd be nice to see the Stripe details. So right now, these details are just whatever is in our database, which should be in sync with Stripe, but it'd be nice to just show the actual Stripe data from the Stripe backend. So that's where a tool would come in handy. So let's go ahead and stop this. Okay, I am going to, it should be my namespace, Stripe Inspector, okay. And again, just say yes to these questions. Okay, that's done. Let's take a look at the docs here. So to register it, go into the resource you want it registered with, in our case, orders, and just do this. And so let's go into orders. So Nova order, and then we want it right after this. So Stripe Inspector make. Let's import that. Okay, let's take a look at it first. So right here, it's the same structure as the other tool. So resources, JS, components, tool. And yeah, we can just do this Stripe Inspector with Stripe, whatever. And yeah, you can do the same thing here. You can call the Stripe API, and let's see if that shows up in our orders resource. So let me just go back here. Actually, let me refresh. Okay, and if you go into one, there it is right there. So again, just do you want in here? How come it's not? Oh, I didn't npm. I have to compile those assets. So Stripe Inspector and npm run watch. Okay, so if I refresh this, it should have that new text that I put in there. Cool. So yeah, tools are very powerful and very extensible, and there are already some tools out there that the community has built. So there you have it, guys. We've taken a look at some of the main features of Laravel Nova and implemented them into our e-commerce application. I'm really enjoying the experience and the ease of use of everything, and I can really appreciate how well thought out all the details are. It's also very easily extendable, and I can see a lot of quality packages being released by the community in the future. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already done so. Thanks for watching, guys. See you in the next one. Okay, thanks. Bye.